I vividly remember my only panic attack. It happened in my first year of college. I was sitting on the train when I saw a group of people I knew sit at the table in front of me. Up to this point, I had been suffering from severe social anxiety, but it was acute in one aspect. I wasn't anxious at meeting new people. I was anxious at the prospect of interacting with people I knew. People who I wanted to talk to, but was too socially anxious to do so.
It's like I'm waiting in line for like a roller coaster, and that stupid like butterflies in your stomach feeling you get, like I get that all the time, and then I never get the feeling of after you ride the roller coaster.
There was an inner conflict. My mind said hide away and don't get seen. Quickly, go to another coach at the next platform. And the reasoning part of myself that knew that my mind was absurd. However, the mind is louder. It drowns out all reason. Soon, I was having palpitations. My heart raced as adrenaline kicked in. My body thought I was in danger, so its fight or flight response kicked in. But I wasn't in danger. I was sitting on a train. The body can't tell the difference between what the mind says and reality. I was soon fleeing the scene. I sat down in another coach when we arrived at the next platform. I was angry and sick of my mind. My social anxiety had gone on too long. This panic attack had to be a sign that my body had enough with the constant torment my mind was creating. Every day I thought up strategies of avoiding people, keeping my back to them, looking down, walking as fast as I could to college so as not to bump into people I knew. I was locked in my mind, and while I enjoyed my studies, my mental health was at a breaking point. The second year was easier, mainly because the people I knew were in the second year and had left. The commute wasn't much of an ordeal anymore. But the problem wasn't gone. I was still socially anxious. I didn't open myself up to people as much as I wanted to. Then COVID happened, and my second year was cut short. That's when I got a headache. A mostly mild headache, but one that would never leave. The cause was in plain sight once medical treatments had been exhausted. It was a headache born out of anxiety. Even at home I went through mental suffering. I felt guilty for playing video games, something that made no sense as I didn't play that much and I hadn't played video games for ages because I'd been so wrapped up in college. My body had had enough of feeling anxious, and so gave me a headache. I have come to the conclusion that mindfulness is the answer. It was the answer all along.
The sad fact is that we are so distracted that we're no longer present in the world in which we live. We miss out on the things that are most important to us. And the crazy thing is that everybody just assumes, well, that's the way life is, so we just kind of got to get on with it. But that's really not how it has to be.
When I was suffering from social anxiety, I knew about meditation, but I wasn't incorporating it into my life seriously. You can watch your thoughts and not follow them. This is an empowering realization, and one that forms the basis of this video. We must start from a beginner's mind. Forget what you know about mindfulness, the sitting in a lotus posture with thumb and forefinger touching while the sun sets. Not only is it a practical means of reducing stress, but it can also give us a refreshing and revolutionary perspective on the nature of consciousness. Let's begin with the definition of mindfulness.
Mindfulness is the awareness that arises by paying attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally.
Meditation is putting your awareness in practice, while mindfulness is when no matter where you are or what you are doing, you're aware of the present moment. We meditate to become more mindful. But how do you meditate? Meditation is effectively doing nothing well. When have we ever been encouraged to do nothing? If you're waiting for the bus, you don't need to do anything, but the prospect of doing nothing proves boring for those without training in mindfulness. So we often take out our phones and scroll mindlessly on social media. But doesn't this only create needless anxiety? A barrage of photos, videos, and opinions will only make you tense and uneasy. In this time of waiting, we have the option, as we have throughout our lives, to be aware. Just look around. Breathe. Hear. Feel your body. This is simple, but when we habitually avoid boredom, it can be difficult without practice. That's what doing nothing well means. Doing nothing, feeling boredom, but not taking out your phone. When the thought comes to check social media, you register the thought and then continue to be aware. We often follow our thoughts. There is no separation between ourselves and the thoughts we have. The thought, check your phone, is so powerful it quickly influences reality. Now you are on your phone. I'm using the phone example because it's the ultimate boredom destroyer. It takes your attention away from yourself and your surroundings efficiently. Feeling low? Check your phone. Feeling angry? Check your phone. You could replace the phone with the TV, magazines, and the radio, anything to drown out how you feel in the present moment. So this is why we need to get more in touch with ourselves through being more mindful. We have seen what the aim of meditation and mindfulness is, but how do you do it? How do you do nothing? Meditation involves sitting or lying down, closing your eyes and paying attention to your breath. The breath is an anchor into the present moment. You don't control it, you simply watch it. Why not pay attention to it now? The moments of particular importance are the short gaps between the in-breath and the out-breath. There is stillness in these moments. Paying attention to your breath naturally slows it down. You can focus on your belly rising, or the cold air coming into your nose, and the hot air coming out. Whatever you focus on, you will realize after a bit of focused awareness on your breath, that your mind starts to wander. The thoughts might go along these lines. Why am I doing this? I could be doing something else. This is boring. It is boring for the mind, as you're not giving it your constant attention. What you need to do when you realize you are lost in thought is to bring your attention back to your breath. This is the back and forth between your mind and your breath that goes on throughout your meditation session. At some points, the gaps of no thought will be long, but don't expect this when you meditate. Expect the monkey mind, a mind that is unsettled and busy, and don't get frustrated. The mind keeps flipping between going back over things in the past and worrying and planning for the future. Meditation isn't an attempt to quiet these thoughts, although this is what is likely to happen after prolonged attention, but to be aware of them. The focus on the breath, excluding all else, is an example of focused awareness. You can direct your awareness to anything. Pay attention to your right hand. Notice the temperature, the muscles. It feels like your right hand has just come alive. It's buzzing. Be more acute. Focus on your fingertips, wrists, palms. This is focused awareness. Open awareness is where you're aware of everything. Your attention drifts from thing to thing, eventually falling into a center of awareness. This is the state of mindfulness, an open awareness of consciousness. Your body is an anchor, just like your breath. Other anchors into the present moment are sensory perceptions. Listen to sounds, but don't label them. Can you listen to the wind and not think, that's the wind? Can you look at a tree and not say to yourself, that's a tree? How does saying in your mind what you are perceiving add to your experience? You are framing the world in your mind so you can deal with it. You are the one responding to what happens to you, and you are the center of the story. It is you who is cold, not the objective sensation of being cold, but a person who has responded to the cold by stating the fact in his mind. Taking the external and making an internal copy of it. But does the thought, "I am cold," really help you? If it is too cold to bear, you will get warm, instinctively. You don't need your mind to tell you not to freeze. The thought, "I am cold," also creates unnecessary anxiety. The thought will not be isolated. Additional thoughts will come, which all speak on your apparent suffering. We often complain about the cold, when there is no need to do so. The cold is often at a level where it can't harm you. Can you be aware of the present moment and not create thoughts about it? Meditation is where you can train yourself to do this. You might get an itchy nose. Can you stay centered and still and allow the itchiness to get stronger and then subside? Do you have to scratch it straight away? Notice the impulse to scratch and see if you can use that and the itch itself as anchors into the present moment. I said how during COVID lockdown I got a headache. This headache became my anchor, stronger than all other anchors. It is an immediate sensation, fluctuation between mild discomfort and pain. My meditations start with this anchor and then become more open, and by the end, my head feels better and I feel calmer. I came to the realization that the thoughts about the pain made the pain worse, greatly exaggerating what I actually felt. Those who suffer from chronic pain would find mindfulness greatly beneficial. I certainly have. Meditating every day is great, but we might need some guidance. This is where guided meditations come in. This is where someone guides you towards certain anchors, often the breath, the body, and sensory perceptions. You will be constantly reminded to bring your attention back to these anchors when you get lost in thought. The reminder is like a nice slap in the face. You are brought back into the present moment, what is actually happening. You are listening to a guided meditation, away from what isn't happening, the contents of your mind. In the description of this video, I've put together a collection of my favorite guided meditations. Don't forget it's wrong to use guided meditations. It is essential. We need those who are present to encourage us to be present. It is a shared presence that can be really beneficial to your practice. You might want to try meditating without guidance, as of course, when you stress during the course of your day, you won't always have a guided meditation on hand. Eckhart Tolle says that the only success is a successful present moment. Make this your priority. Once you surrender to the present moment, you can take decisive action without worry and anxiety. Surrendering doesn't mean being compliant. It means understanding the reality of every situation you're in. Eckhart Tolle used the analogy of cold soup. If your soup is cold, you can either drink it and accept that it is cold, or call a waiter and ask him to heat it up. You don't have to sit there and complain about the cold soup, get worked up and stressed and create stories. I have spent so much money on this meal and I don't even get hot soup. What a washout. You don't have to go down that path. You should surrender and then accept or change the situation. If you ask the waiter to warm up the soup and he can't or won't, then you must accept that. Apply this metaphor to everything in your life. If you're waiting for the bus and the bus is late, you can either stay where you are or walk. You don't have to get stressed about it. Mindfulness is the solution to anxiety, as it eliminates the need for it. It is an objective view of the current situation you are in. Once you know that you are not your thoughts, you feel empowered. You don't have to take your thoughts seriously anymore. They are just objects of consciousness. But does this mean we should never use the mind? The normal state of consciousness for people is almost completely immersed in the mind. How many of the thoughts we have every day are important? If we are mindful, we can make these judgments. As when we meditate, we are aware of the amount of useless, worrying thoughts that take up so much of our attention. The small, useful thoughts, such as those that are creative, inventive, and practical, will shine clearer through the murky clouds of pointless thoughts. When should you meditate? Making a routine of formal practice is a good idea, as if you take a few days not meditating, you could quite easily forget about being aware, and anxiety can come back into your life. You don't have to be carried away by thoughts. I am no expert at mindfulness, but I know how powerful and life-changing the simple act of attention is. What happens over time once we start to practice is a greater feeling of presence. We will no longer be caught up in the contents of our minds. Tension in our bodies will be registered, and once registered, they no longer become a problem. This has been my case for mindfulness, and I hope it helps you start or continue your meditation practice. Can you do nothing? It's time to sit down and find out.